"Grandpa," he said, pressing the object into my palm. "This is for you. For your birthday. It's really, really important." I looked down at what he'd given me. A toy car. A cheap plastic patrol car. The kind you might find in a dollar store checkout line. Black and white. No bigger than my thumb. With tiny plastic wheels that barely rolled. The paint was already chipping in places. It was the sort of throwaway toy that kids get in goodie bags and forget about within hours. "Thank you, buddy," I said, trying to inject warmth into my voice despite my confusion. "It's great. Please tell me your name, the city you're watching me from in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel." But Noah didn't smile or run off the way kids usually do after giving a gift. Instead, he grabbed my hand, his small fingers wrapping around mine with surprising intensity. "No, Grandpa," he whispered, glancing back at his parents who were talking by the door. "You have to keep it safe. You have to look at it really carefully. Promise me." There was something in his voice, fear, urgency, whatever it was. It sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't a child's simple gesture. This was something else entirely. "I promise," I said, meeting his eyes. "I'll keep it safe." He hugged me then, fierce and tight, before his father called his name, and he had to go. I stood in the doorway, watching them drive away, the little plastic car growing warm in my hand. At first, I dismissed my unease as the overactive imagination of a lonely old man looking for meaning in meaningless things. I set the toy car on my nightstand, next to the framed photo of Naomi and me on our wedding day. Just another object in a house full of objects, each one carrying the weight of memory. But I couldn't stop thinking about Noah's expression, the fear in his eyes, the urgency in his voice. You have to look at it really carefully. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around me. Around 2 a.m, I turned on the lamp and picked up the toy car, turning it over in my hands. What was I supposed to see? What was I missing? I examined every detail. The chip paint, the plastic wheels, the tiny decals on the side meant to look like police insignia. Nothing seemed unusual. Nothing seemed important. Just a cheap toy, probably something Noah had found in his room, and decided to give it Grandpa because kids do things like that sometimes. But then my finger brushed against something on the bottom of the car. A small indentation. No, not an indentation. A switch. Tiny, almost invisible, the same black color as the car's undercarriage. You'd never notice it unless you were looking for it, unless someone told you to look carefully. My heart started pounding. With trembling fingers, I pressed the switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a faint whirring sound. A click, and then a voice, small and tinny but unmistakable, began to play from a speaker hidden inside the toy. Marcus's voice. "Don't see why we have to wait," he was saying. The old man's clearly losing it, living alone in that huge house, barely taking care of himself. It's just a matter of time before something happens. A fall, a fire, who knows what. We'd be doing him a favor, really. Another voice. Female. My heart shattered as I recognized it. Jasmine. "I know, but we have to be careful. If we push too hard, too fast, he might fight us. We need to document everything. Every time he forgets something, every time he seems confused, build a case for incompetence. A case for incompetence. My own daughter, talking about me like I was a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be removed. Marcus again. And the house? Once we get him into a facility. We'll sell it, obviously. The land alone is worth a fortune. With the money from the sale, we can finally get that place in the suburbs we've been wanting. Noah would have a yard, good schools. It's perfect. Just need to be patient, Jasmine said. A few more months of documenting his decline, maybe get some medical opinions on board. Then we move forward with getting power of attorney, and the recording cut off. The tiny speaker fell silent. I sat there in the dark, the toy car in my hand, and felt my entire world collapse. They were plotting against me. My own daughter and her husband were scheming to take everything, my home, my independence, my dignity. They were going to declare me incompetent, put me in some facility, Sell the house I built with Naomi, the house that held every memory of our life together. And they were using my own supposed decline as justification. Every forgotten name, every moment of confusion, normal things that happen to everyone, especially people living alone in grief. They were cataloging them, weaponizing them, building evidence to steal my life out from under me. The betrayal was so complete, so absolute, that for a moment I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just about money or property. This was about being erased, being declared unfit, being told that my own judgment, my own agency, my own life no longer belonged to me. How long had they been planning this? How many Sunday phone calls had been reconnaissance missions, fishing for signs of weakness? How many visits had been documentation sessions, gathering evidence? How many times had Jasmine looked at me with what I thought was concern, when really it was cold calculation? And Noah, sweet, innocent Noah, somehow he'd found this recording. Somehow he'd understood enough to know I needed to hear it. He'd hidden it in a toy and given it to me as a birthday gift, risking who knows what punishment if his parents discovered what he'd done. My grandson had tried to save me. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, in the chair where Naomi used to sit, holding the toy car like it was a live grenade. My mind raced through options, through possibilities, through scenarios both dark and desperate. I could confront them immediately, storm over to their house, play the recording, demand an explanation. But what would that accomplish? They deny it, claim it was taken out of context, maybe even turn around on me. See how paranoid and irrational he's becoming? This just proves he needs help. I could go public, tell everyone, other family members, friends, anyone who would listen. But who would believe me? An elderly widower, living alone, claiming his daughter was trying to steal his house based on a recording hidden in a toy car given to him by a 7-year-old? It sounded crazy even to me, and I was living it. I could hire a lawyer, get ahead of them legally, but that would mean war. Open, declared war with my own daughter. Was I ready for that? Was I willing to destroy whatever remained of our relationship? Or I could do nothing. I could pretend I never heard the recording, let things play out as they planned. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe I would be better off in a facility somewhere, with people to take care of me, no responsibilities, no house to maintain. Maybe letting go was the kindest thing I could do for everyone. That last thought made me sick to my stomach. Not because it was unreasonable, but because part of me, a weak, tired part that I hated, actually considered it. Actually thought maybe it would be easier to just give up, give in, let them win. But then I looked around the room, at the photos on the walls, at the furniture Naomi and I had picked out together, at the worn spot on the floor, where her favorite rocking chair used to sit, at the doorframe where we'd marked Jasmine's height every year on her birthday. This house wasn't just property. It wasn't just an asset to be liquidated. It was a life. Our life. The physical manifestation of 40 years of love, work, dreams, and sacrifice. Every nail, every board, every coat of paint had meaning. Naomi had helped me choose a color for the kitchen, a warm yellow that reminded her of sunshine. We'd argued, lovingly, about the tile for the bathroom. We'd planted the garden together, her hands in the soil, teaching me about roots and growth and patience. To let them take it, to let them sell it to strangers who would never know its history, its significance, its soul, that would be the ultimate betrayal. Not of them, but of Naomi, of everything we'd built together. I couldn't let that happen. I wouldn't. But as the sun rose on my first full day knowing the truth, I realized something crucial. I didn't want revenge. Not really. Revenge was cold, bitter, empty. Revenge wouldn't bring Naomi back. Wouldn't heal the rift with Jasmine. Wouldn't give me back the years of easy love with my daughter before Marcus came along and changed everything. What I wanted was justice, protection, the ability to live out my remaining years in the home I'd built, with dignity and autonomy intact. I wanted my daughter to see what she'd become, what she was doing. I wanted her to remember who I was, who we were together before greed and ambition, and Marcus's influence corrupted everything. But more than that, and this was the hardest thing to admit, I wanted to understand. I want to know how we'd gotten here. How the little girl who used to make me Father's Day cards and tell me I was her hero had turned into someone who could casually discuss declaring me incompetent over dinner with her husband. What I'd done wrong. Where'd I failed her. The days that followed were strange, surreal. I went through the motions of normal life, while my mind churned with plans and doubts and fears. I did my grocery shopping, tended my small garden, watched the news, read my books. But underneath it all was this constant awareness of the secret I carried, the knowledge that everything had changed even if the surface remained same. Jasmine called on Sunday like she always did. "Hi, Dad," she said, her voice bright and false. "How are you doing?" Before, I would have given my standard answer. "Fine, honey, how are you?" But now, knowing what I knew, every word felt loaded with meaning. Was she fishing for evidence? Listening for signs of decline? "I'm well," I said carefully. "Keeping busy." "That's good. You staying on top of your medications." There it was, the concerned daughter act. But I heard it differently now. Medications, documentation, evidence. "Of course," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Same as always." We talked for 15 minutes. She told me about Noah's soccer practice, about a problem at work, about their plans to repaint the kitchen. Surface things, safe things. Not once did she ask how I really was. Not once did she mention the birthday visit, or ask if I liked Noah's gift. After we hung up, I sat with the phone in my hand, feeling the weight of her deception. This was going to be harder than I thought. I spent weeks gathering my own evidence. I made copies of important documents, the deed to my house, my will, medical records showing I was of sound mind. I visited my doctor and asked for a full cognitive evaluation, which I passed with flying colors. I documented everything. My daily routines, my ability to manage my finances, my social connections. If they wanted to build a case for incompetence, I was going to build a fortress of evidence to the contrary. But I also did something else. I started watching Marcus and Jasmine more carefully during their visits. I listened to questions they asked, the topics they raised, and I began to see the pattern. Marcus would bring up stories about elderly people who'd had accidents in their homes, falls downstairs, kitchen fires, always framed as concern, always with that underlying suggestion. Wouldn't you be safer somewhere else? Jasmine would ask about my memory, about whether I'd been forgetting things. When I said no, she'd press gently, "Are you sure? Because last time we talked, you seemed a bit confused about dates." It was gaslighting, subtle but deliberate. They were trying to make me doubt myself, to plant the seeds of incompetence even in my own mind. Understanding their strategy helped me prepare my defense. But it didn't make the betrayal hurt any less. The hardest part was pretending around Noah. He'd look at me during visits with those worried eyes, clearly wondering if I'd found his gift, if I understood its significance. I wanted to reassure him, to tell him I knew, that I was grateful that he'd done exactly the right thing. But I couldn't risk tipping off his parents. So instead, I'd squeeze his hand and give him a small nod, hoping he understood. 3 months after my birthday, Marcus and Jasmine invited me to Sunday dinner at their house. This was unusual. Normally our interactions were brief visits at my place or phone calls. An invitation to their home for an actual meal felt significant. I accepted, of course. This was it. I realized this was when they'd make their move. I prepared carefully. I dressed well, not too casual, which might suggest I'd stopped caring about my appearance, but not too formal, which might seem confused about the occasion. I brought wine, a nice bottle, the kind of thoughtful gift a competent adult brings to a dinner party. I made sure to be on time, not early, not late. And in my pocket, barely bigger than a matchbook, I carried a small digital recorder. If they were going to make their play, I wanted proof. Dinner was uncomfortable from the start. The conversation felt orchestrated, like they'd planned topics in advance. They asked about my health, my daily routine, my social life. Each question seemed innocent on the surface, but felt like an interrogation. "Are you still driving, Dad?" Jasmine asked as she served the salad. "Of course," I said. "Just went to the store yesterday." "How was that?" Marcus interjected. Find everything okay? I saw what he was doing, looking for gaps, confusions, anything that could be used as evidence. Found everything fine. I said evenly, same store I've been shopping at for 30 years. 30 years, Marcus repeated, exchanging a glance with Jasmine. That's a long time. Don't you ever feel like maybe it's time for a change? Try something new. Why fix what isn't broken? I countered. The dinner dragged on, each course feeling like another round in a boxing match. They probed, I deflected. They suggested, I resisted, all while maintaining the veneer of a pleasant family meal. Noah sat quietly, pushing food around his plate, his eyes darting between his parents and me. I wondered what he understood about what was happening. Too much, probably. No child should have to navigate these adult deceptions. Finally, as Jasmine brought out coffee and dessert, Marcus cleared his throat. So, listen, he said, leaning back in his chair with studied casualness. Jasmine and I have been talking, and we're a bit worried about you. Here we go, I thought. This is it. Worried. I said, keeping my voice neutral. About what? Well, you're living alone in that big house, Jasmine began, her voice dripping with false concern. It's a lot to manage at your age. The maintenance, the yard work, the stairs. I manage fine, I interrupted gently. But for how long? Marcus cut in. No offense, but you're not getting any younger. We just think it might be time to start considering other options before something happens. Something like what? An accident, Jasmine said quickly. A fall. Oh, we just worry, Dad. We love you. We want you to be safe. The lies came so easily to her. That was perhaps the most painful part. She'd always been a terrible liar as a child. I could tell immediately when she'd broken something or skipped homework. But now she lied as smoothly as breathing. I appreciate your concern, I said carefully, but I'm not ready to leave my home. We're not saying you have to leave right away, Marcus said, leaning forward. We're just saying maybe we should start looking at options. Assisted living facilities, retirement communities. Some of them are really nice. Like resorts, almost. Prison resorts, I said before I could stop myself. The mask slipped from Marcus's face for just a moment. I saw anger there, frustration. But he composed himself quickly. That's not fair, he said. We're trying to help you. Are you? The words came out harder than I intended. Or are you trying to help yourselves? Jasmine's face went pale. Dad, what are you talking about? This was it. The moment of truth. I could back down, apologize, say I was just being sensitive, let them continue their slow-motion theft of my life. Or I could fight. I thought of Naomi, of the house we built, of Noah's frightened eyes, of the life I still had left to live on my own terms. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the toy car. The recognition on their faces was instantaneous. Shock, then fear, then a desperate scrambling for composure. What's that? Jasmine asked, but her voice betrayed her. A birthday gift, I said quietly. From Noah. I pressed the switch. Their voices filled the dining room, cold and calculating, discussing my incompetence, my home, their plans. I watched their faces as they listened to themselves, saw the color drain away, saw the panic set in. When the recording ended, silence hung in the air like smoke. Dad, let me explain. Jasmine started, but I held up my hand. No, I said. My voice was steady, despite the storm raging inside me. You don't get to explain. You don't get to make excuses. You plotted to steal my home, to declare me incompetent, to erase my life. Your own father. We were trying to help, Marcus said weakly. Help yourselves, you mean? To my house, to my money, to my dignity. Tears were streaming down Jasmine's face now. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Marcus said. Don't, I said sharply. Don't blame him. You made your choices. You said those words. You planned this conspiracy. Own it. I stood up, my legs steadier than I expected. I came here thinking I wanted revenge, I said, thinking I wanted to destroy you the way you tried to destroy me. But sitting here now, looking at you, I realized something. Revenge won't heal this wound. It won't bring back the daughter I thought I had. It won't undo the betrayal. I pulled out copies of documents from my other pocket, my cognitive evaluation, statements from my doctor, financial records showing my competence. I have all of this, I said, placing them on the table. I have proof that I'm perfectly capable of managing my own life. I have the recording of your conspiracy. I have everything I need to destroy you both legally and socially if I choose. Marcus had gone completely white. Jasmine was sobbing openly now. But I'm not going to, I continued, because you're still my daughter and he's still my grandson's father. Because Naomi wouldn't want to tear this family apart, even if you were willing to do it to me. I looked directly at Jasmine. But hear me clearly. I'm staying in my home. I'm living my life on my terms. And if you ever try something like this again, I won't hesitate to use everything I have against you. Do you understand? She nodded, unable to speak through her tears. I turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. Noah was standing there in his pajamas. I hadn't realized how late it had gotten. He'd been listening. I knelt down, meeting his eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. "You're braver than you know." He hugged me, and I held him tight for a moment before standing and walking out of that house, possibly for the last time. The drive home felt longer than usual. My hands shook on the steering wheel. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation was wearing off, leaving exhaustion in its wake. But underneath the exhaustion was something else, something that felt almost like peace. I'd faced the truth. I'd confronted the betrayal, and I'd chosen not to let it destroy me or them. That was power, real power, not the power of revenge, but the power of choosing who I wanted to be in my worst moments. In the days that followed, I didn't hear from Jasmine or Marcus. I half expected lawyers' calls or some other form of retaliation, but nothing came, just silence. The silence was different now, though. It wasn't the suffocating loneliness I'd felt before. It was quieter, cleaner somehow, like the air after storm has passed. I threw myself into projects around the house, fixed the loose board on the back porch, repainted the guest room, organized the garage. Each task felt like an affirmation. I can do this. I'm capable. This is mine. 2 weeks after the confrontation, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Jasmine standing there alone. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, her hair unwashed, her face drawn. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I hesitated, then stepped aside. We sat in the living room, the same living room where Naomi and I had rocked her to sleep as a baby, where we'd celebrated her graduations and birthdays, where she told us she was pregnant with Noah. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't even know if I can forgive myself." I said nothing, just waited. "Marcus and I are separated," she continued. I asked him to move out. "I couldn't. I can't be with someone who could do what we did, who could turn me into someone who could do what I did." She looked up at me, and I saw my daughter in her face, not the calculating woman from the recording, but the little girl who used to believe I could fix anything. "I don't know when I became that person," she said. "The one on that recording. It was gradual, I think. Marcus would say things, and they made sense at the time. How you were getting older, how the house was too much, how we were just thinking ahead, planning for the inevitable. And somehow, somewhere along the way, planning turned into scheming. Concern turned into conspiracy. Tears were flowing freely now. I forgot who you were. I forgot who I was supposed to be. I thought about the house, the money, what we could do with it, and I forgot that it wasn't just property. It was your life. It was Mom's memory. It was everything you built together." She wiped her eyes roughly. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I became, and I hate it. I hate myself for it." I sat with that for a long moment. Part of me wanted to stay angry, to hold on to the righteous fury that had sustained me through the worst of it. But looking at her, broken and genuine in her remorse, I felt something shift. "I can't forgive you yet," I said honestly. "Maybe I will someday, but not yet. The wound is too fresh." She nodded, accepting this. "But I continued, I can tell you this. You're not just what you did in your worst moments. You're also the daughter who used to help her mother in the garden, who read books to me when I was sick, who loved fiercely and dreamed big. That person is still in there, Jasmine. You just have to find her again. What if I can't? She whispered. Then you keep trying. Every day. That's all any of us can do. She left shortly after, but something had changed. Not fix. Healing isn't that simple or that fast. But change. A door had opened where before there was only a wall. Over the following months, we began the slow, painful work of rebuilding. Not what we had before, that was gone, destroyed by betrayal, and could never be fully reclaimed. But something new, something more honest, perhaps, something built on the understanding that we'd both seen the worst in each other and chosen to move forward anyway. Jasmine came to visit once a week, without Marcus. We'd have coffee and talk about small things at first. The weather, Noah's school, my garden. Gradually, we worked up to bigger things. She told me about her marriage counseling, her therapy, her efforts to understand how she'd lost herself. I told her about my loneliness, about how much I'd struggled after Naomi died, about fears I'd never voiced before. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't easy. But it was real. Noah visited too, more often now that Jasmine was coming alone. We'd work on projects together, building a birdhouse, fixing up an old bicycle I'd found in the garage. He never mentioned the recording, the toy car, the secret he'd kept. But sometimes he'd look at me with those wise, sad eyes, and I'd know he understood more than any 7-year-old should. One afternoon, while we were sanding wood for a bookshelf, he said quietly, "I'm glad you didn't leave, Grandpa." "Me too, buddy." I said, "Me too." As summer turned to fall, I found myself thinking less about the betrayal and more about what came after, about the choice I'd made in that dining room. I could have destroyed them. I had the power, the evidence, the moral high ground. I could have pursued legal action, could have turned their scheme public, could have cut them out of my life entirely. But I didn't, and in not seeking revenge, I'd found something more valuable than vengeance ever could have given me. I'd found out who I was when tested. I'd learned that I could face the worst betrayal and still choose mercy, not weakness. There's nothing weak about choosing forgiveness over fury, but strength, the kind of strength that doesn't need to prove itself through destruction. The lesson wasn't that family secrets don't matter. They do. They cut deep and leave scars that never fully fade. The lesson was that how we respond to those secrets, to that betrayal, to that pain, that's where we define ourselves. I thought about Naomi often during this time. What would she have done? Knowing her, she probably would have confronted them even sooner, with that fierce maternal love that could be both nurturing and terrifying. But she also would have forgiven eventually. She always said that holding grudges was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Standing in the house we built together, I felt her presence, not as a ghost or a memory, but as a foundation. The values we'd shared, the life we constructed, the love we'd nurtured, all that was still here, still solid, still real. Marcus and Jasmine couldn't take that away. No one could. The house itself seemed different now, too. Less like a mausoleum of the past, and more like a living space again. I started making small changes, rearranged some furniture, hung new pictures, planted new flowers in the garden. Not erasing Naomi, never that, but making room for new life alongside the old memories. One evening, as I sat on the back porch watching the sunset, Jasmine joined me. We sat in silence for a while, just existing in the same space without needing to fill it with words. Finally, she said, "Do you remember when I was little and I asked you what love was?" I smiled. "You were 6. You just watched some Disney movie. And you said love was choosing someone every day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard." "I remember." "I forgot that," she said softly. "With Marcus, with you, with everyone. I stopped choosing. I stopped working. I just expected everything to be easy, and when it wasn't, I took the easy way out. Are you choosing now?" I asked. She thought about that. "I'm trying to. Every day. choosing to be better than I was, choosing to earn back your trust even if it takes years, choosing to be the kind of mother to Noah that you and Mom were to me. That's all anyone can ask, I said. We sat together as darkness fell, and for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt full of possibility, of healing, of the slow, steady work of rebuilding what betrayal had broken. I thought about Noah's gift, that tiny plastic car that had changed everything. Such a small thing. But sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest truths. A child's love, a grandfather's dignity, a family's secrets. All hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone brave enough to look carefully. As I sit here now, in the home I built with my own hands, I understand something I didn't before. This house isn't just walls and floors and a roof. It's not just property or real estate or an asset to be managed. It's a testament to love, to perseverance, to the belief that we can build something lasting in an impermanent world. And I understand something else too. The betrayal hurt. God, it hurt more than I can express. But it also freed me from the pretense that everything was fine when it wasn't, freed me from the comfortable lie that family always means loyalty, freed me to see clearly, to act decisively, to choose my own path even when it was painful. I'm 64 years old. I've lost my wife. I've been betrayed by my daughter. I've faced conspiracy and deception and the possibility of losing everything I hold dear. But I'm still here, still standing, still capable, still choosing every day to move forward with dignity and purpose. The house creaks and settles around me, familiar and comforting. Somewhere in the distance, I hear children playing, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. Life goes on. Pain fades. Wounds heal slowly but surely. And I've learned that family secrets, no matter how devastating, don't have to define us. What defines us is what we do when the secrets are revealed. Do we seek revenge or redemption, destruction or healing? Do we let the betrayal make us bitter, or do we find a way, however difficult, however long it takes, to move toward forgiveness? I chose forgiveness, not because I'm a saint or particularly noble. I chose it because the alternative, carrying that anger and hurt for whatever years I've left, would have destroyed me more surely than anything Marcus and Jasmine could have done. I chose it because I wanted to be free. Free from rage. Free from vengeance. Free to live out my days in the home I love, on my terms, with whatever measure of peace I can construct from the rubble of betrayal. As I turn off the porch light and prepare for bed, I stop by Noah's photo on the mantel. 7 years old, and already braver than most adults I know. He saw injustice and found a way to fight it. He risked his parents' anger to protect his grandfather. He understood, even at his age, that silence in the face of wrong is its own form of betrayal. I owe him everything. But more than that, I owe it to him to show him what it looks like to face darkness and choose light, to be wronged and choose justice over vengeance, to be hurt and choose healing over bitterness. That's the final lesson, I think. The one I'll carry with me for whatever time remains. We can't control what others do to us. We can't prevent betrayal or conspiracy or the painful revelation of secrets. But we can control how we respond. We can choose who we want to be in our worst moments. We can decide whether to let the darkness consume us or find our way back to the light. I chose the light. It wasn't easy. Some days it still isn't. But it's a choice I make every morning when I wake up in this house, every evening when I sit on this porch, every time Jasmine calls or visits, and I choose to answer, to engage, to continue the slow work of rebuilding trust. Family secrets don't define us. Our response to them does. And in that response, in that choice, we find out who we really are. Not who we pretend to be when everything is comfortable and easy, but who we become when we're tested, when we're hurt, when we're given the power to destroy and choose mercy instead. I'm just an old man in a house full of memories. But I'm also a man who faced his worst nightmare and survived, who was given a reason for revenge and chose forgiveness, who looked at the wreckage of broken trust and decided to build something new from the pieces. That's my truth. That's my story. That's the legacy I'll leave behind when my time comes. Not just a house, but a lesson about resilience, about choice, about the quiet strength it takes to be broken and choose to heal. And in the end, that's more valuable than any revenge could ever be. Have you ever uncovered a secret that changed everything for you? Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join me for more stories of family, truth, and the lessons we all must learn.